Hi everybody, I'm KHOU 11 meteorologist Pat Kaplan coming to you here from Houston, Texas on Monday, October 7th, 2024, giving you the latest update on what's going on with now Category 5 Hurricane Milton in the Gulf of Mexico. What a difference from the video that I recorded just last night where the storm was just basically a Category 1 hurricane. Now we're at Category 5 status. As of the 1 p.m. Central Time update, winds are now at 175 miles per hour, and this storm has been jumping in intensity every hour since very early this morning. Pressure now is down to 911 millibars. What does that mean? We measure a storm's intensity not by wind speed, but by pressure levels. And when you get a pressure that's sub 9 teens, you're talking about now one of the most intense hurricanes ever on record in the Atlantic basin, which includes the Gulf of Mexico. So just an exceptionally impressive storm here. And obviously, the more impressive the storm is, the more dangerous it is. So a very, very healthy presentation here on our infrared satellite. You can see it is pretty much going to graze the northern tip of the Yucatan Peninsula there. Enormous storm surge coming in here on the western tip of the Yucatan Peninsula here as the winds push all of that water onshore. But just an incredible storm here. You've got amazing symmetry and really like a buzzsaw kind of appearance. Notice the waves, the gravity waves. We are looking at the tops of the clouds here. The colors indicate temperatures of the cloud tops. So that's what we're looking at. So the brighter these colors get into that white with occasional shades of magenta, you're talking about cloud top temperatures around 90 to 100 degrees below 0 Celsius. Just amazing stuff to see, even for the month of October. So an exceptional storm all the way around. And again, we hate to talk about this because the more exceptional these storms are, the more of a danger they pose to anybody in the path. Speaking of the path, here's the latest forecast track from the National Hurricane Center. This is going to change a bit, but overall this is the general idea, and it hasn't changed a lot in terms of the actual path that the storm is going to take. Intensity forecasting is the hardest part of hurricane forecasting, and so that's why some of these numbers don't actually match up with what we've got up there right now. But bottom line is we do expect the storm to maintain that Category 5 strength at least through tomorrow morning. That's what we know. From there, it starts to take that turn towards the north. Okay, so it's already, this morning it was moving towards the south and east. Now we're starting to see just a straight movement to the east. And eventually, as we get into tomorrow, that eastward movement is going to turn more towards the north and east, and then it takes aim at Florida. So the things that haven't changed are the idea that the storm grazes the northern tip of the Yucatan and then takes that turn towards the north. And now all attention goes towards the west coast of Florida. So again, no big changes even from last night. We're still expecting a major Category 3 hurricane to make landfall somewhere from the Nature Coast down to southwest Florida. The center of the cone, as it has been for days, is still over the Tampa Bay area. The consistency on this forecast has been nothing short of remarkable. Obviously, again, not a good thing for folks in the Tampa Bay area. And notice, we do expect the storm to weaken. Right now, it's an extremely powerful Category 5 hurricane. By Wednesday evening, though, it drops down to Category 3. That's not going to matter when it comes to the impact that you're going to feel along the west coast of Florida. Once landfall happens, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, we'll take a look at the hurricane hunters. They have been in and out of the storm all morning long. They are the ones that have been reporting back with these updates on how strong the storm is. And it was their last pass through the storm before they started to make their exit, going back to Kessler Air Force Base, that we got the wind speed measurement of 169 miles per hour, which extrapolated to the surface goes to 175 miles per hour. And that surface pressure measurement of 914 millibars, which again extrapolated with dropsondes, instruments that they drop out of the plane to measure the atmospheric conditions. They got a reading of 911 millibars. And that's why they increased the intensity to 911 millibars and 175 miles per hour. Really brave pilots and scientists flying through the middle of this storm that's just intensified exceptionally through the overnight and this morning. Okay, let's take a look at the model plots now. What I'm about to show you is lines that represent the path that the storm can take from a ton of different models. So each one of those white lines indicates a different computer model. And sometimes these model plots can get a little messy. So what we've done is we take the average or the consensus of a couple of these models and we plot that to kind of see what the general idea is. And you can see the black line there, that's your consensus plot. And notice, if you've been keeping up with these videos the last few days, not a lot has changed. We're still expecting that cluster of models. They all take the storm into the Tampa Bay area, maybe just north, maybe just south. That is the big question that still has to be answered. And it's a very important question because it's a huge population center that we're dealing with, the Tampa Bay area. Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, Bradenton, a lot of folks live in this area, into Clearwater as well. And the exact track of this storm is going to have a huge impact on the impacts that we see at landfall. So what's driving that? What is going to eventually determine the exact landfall point of this storm? Two things: high pressure to the south over the Caribbean, that's nudging the storm north, and then a big digging area of low pressure, a trough in the atmosphere in the form of a cold front, is pushing into the Gulf states today. And that's going to help to push this storm south and then eventually to the east. So in combination with the high, you get this squeeze play and this little bit of a highway here that will take the storm basically right towards the west coast of Florida. So there's no question that the storm is headed for the west coast of Florida. The exact landfall point, though, is still what remains to be seen. But eventually you can see that high is going to start to push the storm north. That's what's going to start that northward turn along with that digging trough as we get into probably Tuesday and Tuesday night. And you can see here on Future Track, there's the cold front literally taking this thing and pulling it up towards the north and east. But also look at what's happening. By the time we get to landfall, whether it's Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, the storm isn't that perfect circle anymore. No, instead, now we've got a little bit of a, I would call that like an upside down comma shape, right? Kind of hard to see the yellow there. I'll switch colors for you. We'll go to blue. That upside down comma shape. That is a result of wind shear, which is all part of that cold front coming in. So that cold front is attached to the jet stream. And the jet stream is a river of really fast air in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And when that interacts with tropical systems, that imparts a tremendous amount of stress on these systems, and it starts to tear them apart. So the wind shear is going to look something like this, which is why it's going to be shredding the northern part of that storm up and away from the center. And that is why the Hurricane Center has the forecast of this being a Category 3 at landfall instead of a Category 5. Still a very dangerous storm. Here's a different look of it. This is a little more of a clear look. So there's the jet stream to the north. Now I got to tell you, the jet stream does two things. Right now, believe it or not, this is actually helping Milton to intensify, among some other factors, one being the fact that it's a really small, compact storm. Those storms tend to intensify faster. But it's getting help from the jet stream. Now, how is that possible? Why is that the case? Because these storms, remember, it's a lot of low pressure, right? And it's also low pressure, basically, it pulls air in from the surrounding areas. That's what's happening at the surface, right? So low pressure pulls air in from the surface, and then it shoots it out the top of the storm. The faster you can get air away from the top of that storm, the faster air is going to get pulled in to the lower part of the storm. And then the faster that air goes up, the lower the pressure gets, right? You're pulling air away from the surface, so that pressure gets lower. That's the science behind this. Well, if you have a mechanism that is literally ripping air away from the top of the storm, that's helping to accelerate the intensification process. So right now, Milton is in that sweet spot where it's just close enough where the jet stream is helping to intensify things. However, Milton will eventually fly a little too close to the sun. And as it gets closer to the jet stream, now that shear starts to work against the storm. It starts to shred it a bit. Unfortunately, by this point, the system is still so strong that it's not going to make a difference. We're still talking about a major Category 3 hurricane at landfall as we get to either Wednesday evening or Wednesday night. Another thing I want to talk about, storm surge. Even if this storm weakens, Category 3, let's even say best case scenario, Category 2, in a wishful thinking world, the damage is done and the die is cast. in terms of storm surge potential. Why is that? Think about if you take a rock, you drop it in the water, the waves form. Even though the rock is gone, those waves still go on. So even though your storm, Milton, is expected to weaken from Category 5 status to Category 3 status, those waves are still there. And the longer this storm stays as Category 4, Category 5, that wall of water around the storm builds higher and higher and higher. So the longer this thing stays strong, the bigger the storm surge is going to get. So please, if you live near the coast, this is going to be a Cat 4 or 5 level storm surge event, even though the storm drops down to Category 3 status. So storm surge watches right now in effect from the Nature Coast through Tampa Bay into Southwest Florida. They will eventually tweak these because the storm surge values that are forecast will ultimately be determined by where the landfall happens. So right now, because the forecast cone includes parts of the Nature Coast, we've got storm surge forecast values around 5 to 10 feet, going all the way north of Tampa Bay into the Nature Coast and Big Bend. Tampa Bay's forecast right now, 8 to 12 feet of storm surge with 5 to 10 feet of storm surge expected here from Charlotte Harbor into Fort Myers, which by the way was just ravaged by Hurricane Ian's storm surge 2 years ago, getting down into Southwest Florida and Naples. This is where the exact placement of the hurricane becomes critical. We tell you all the time, don't focus on the exact center of the hurricane. For storm surge, the exact center of the hurricane does matter. Here's the reason why. The current forecast track takes the storm basically right through St. Petersburg and Tampa. If the center of the storm goes right through Pinellas County, this would be worst case scenario, and you will see storm surge in Tampa Bay unlike anything that's been recorded in history, at least in the modern history of the city. And the reason for that is because Tampa Bay has not taken a direct hit from a major hurricane since 1921. And since then, the population of this area has exploded. So this is a storm setup, the way it stands right now, that people that are living there have never been through. So please, those evacuation orders, they mean something. So if the storm makes landfall going through Pinellas County into Tampa Bay, all of the winds on the south side are going to push that water onshore. And so you're talking about significant storm surge from Tampa Bay down into Sarasota, Venice Beach, Port Charlotte, Charlotte Harbor, and then getting into Fort Myers and the Caloosahatchee River, which goes between Cape Coral and Fort Myers. If the storm makes landfall 40 miles to the south, which is the kind of forecast we just can't give you at this point, but if it makes that landfall 40 miles south, watch how Tampa Bay is taken out of the red. Because all of a sudden now, the winds are coming around from the north. They will still see storm surge in Tampa Bay, but it will not be the significant storm surge that they see farther south of the storm track. So right now, I hate to say this, as someone that used to live in Fort Myers, and as someone that watched Fort Myers go through that devastation 2 years ago, but it looks like Southwest Florida will see significant storm surge either way. And so areas like Charlotte Harbor, Fort Myers, Venice, getting up towards Sarasota, in this case, you would see the worst of it, and Tampa Bay would be spared the worst. We can't tell you exactly where that landfall point is going to be right now. So bottom line, if you're being told to evacuate, do it, because it's a densely populated area and it's going to take you a long time to get out of these spots. So here's the bottom line with Milton. We're pretty much at that peak intensity now. It'll fluctuate, and we're going to hang on to it for a while, probably as we get into Tuesday as well. As the storm starts to move north and as it interacts with the jet stream, we do expect it to weaken to Category 3 status. However, like I just mentioned, we are expecting devastating storm surge along the west coast of Florida, along the storm's exact landfall point and point south. That's where it's going to be the worst, because that is where the water is going to be pushed onshore from the wind. And again, even though we're expecting Category 3 at landfall, that storm surge could be on the magnitude of what you would see with a 4 or 5. Things to consider. Again, stay on top of this forecast for any changes. several times every day for the next few days. If you live in Florida, if you have friends or family there, if you're under an evacuation order, get out now. Do so when you're told. And again, stay safe and stay on top of this forecast as we go through the next few days.